Donald Trump, the business of a name. Chapter 1, Roots. To understand Donald Trump, you first have to understand where he came from. The Trump story doesn't begin in Manhattan's glittering skyline. It begins in Queens and Brooklyn, the working-class boroughs across the East River. Donald John Trump was born on June 14, 1946, the fourth of 5 children of Fred and Mary Trump. His father, Frederick Christ Trump, was already a successful developer. He built thousands of homes for returning soldiers after World War II. They weren't glamorous skyscrapers. They were brick apartment complexes, row houses, modest developments that shaped the suburbs of New York. Fred Trump had a reputation. He was frugal, disciplined, sometimes severe. He knew how to cut costs, negotiate subsidies, and turn a profit where others failed. By the 1950s, he was one of the most important developers in the outer boroughs. Donald grew up in Jamaica Estates, Queens, not in poverty, but not in the luxury he would later embrace. Teachers described him as energetic, assertive, sometimes aggressive. At 13, after trouble at school, his parents sent him to the New York Military Academy. There he thrived in the regimented environment, excelling in sports and leadership. But at home, Donald absorbed something even more important: the language of real estate. He watched his father inspect construction sites, argue with contractors, collect rents. He heard conversations about zoning laws, tax breaks, battles with city officials. He was fascinated not only by the buildings, but by the game of business itself. By the time Donald entered Fordham University and later transferred to the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, he already had advantages few students had: connections, capital, and a live-in mentor in his father. But Donald wanted more. Fred Trump was wealthy, yes, but he was the landlord of Brooklyn and Queens. His projects provided homes, not headlines. For Donald, that was never enough. He craved attention, recognition, the Manhattan spotlight. In 1971, at just 25 years old, Donald took control of the company. He renamed it the Trump Organization, a symbolic rebirth. It was no longer Fred's business. It was Donald's stage. These early years were about strategy. Donald built political connections, mastered publicity, and studied Manhattan's opportunities. The man who would later cover his world in gold was still learning, but the seeds were planted. He had ambition, vision, hunger. All he needed was the right opportunity, and New York was about to hand it to him. Chapter 2, the first big win. Commodore, Grand Hyatt. New York City in the 1970s was collapsing. Crime was rising. The city was on the verge of bankruptcy, and Midtown's once grand buildings stood nearly empty. But Donald Trump saw opportunity. His gateway came in the form of the decaying Commodore Hotel beside Grand Central Terminal. Built in 1919, by the 1970s it was losing millions. Its rooms nearly deserted. Most developers walked away. Donald leaned in. He approached Penn Central, the bankrupt railroad that owned the hotel. He pitched them on a sale. Then he lobbied Mayor Abraham Beam's administration, arguing that saving the Commodore could help revive Midtown itself. The result was a groundbreaking deal. In 1976, New York approved a UDC lease/PILOT structure, effectively a 40-year tax break worth tens of millions. Banks, reassured by the city's backing, agreed to finance. And to cement credibility, Trump brought in Hyatt Hotels as a management partner. Piece by piece, the impossible deal came together. Penn Central sold. The city granted incentives. Hyatt joined. Chase Manhattan financed. In 1980, the reborn Grand Hyatt New York opened its doors. Gleaming glass, marble interiors, a revived Midtown landmark. For Donald Trump, this was more than a hotel. It was proof. Proof that he could negotiate with banks, City Hall, and corporations all at once. Proof that he could take a bankrupt property and turn it into a symbol of revival. The Grand Hyatt made Donald Trump a Manhattan player, and he learned something crucial: that every deal could also be a story, and every story could make the Trump name bigger. Chapter 3: Trump Tower. In 1979, he acquired the site of the old Bonwit Teller department store on Fifth Avenue, one of the most prestigious addresses in the world. He promised to preserve the building's Art Deco reliefs for the Metropolitan Museum. But when demolition came in 1980, the sculptures were destroyed. Critics accused Trump of callousness. He pressed on. Rising in its place was Trump Tower. 58 stories of reflective bronze glass, a 6-story atrium with marble floors, a cascading waterfall, and golden escalators. A skyscraper designed not just to house tenants, but to dazzle them. When it opened in 1983, Trump Tower was more than a building. It was a brand statement. Gucci signed a flagship lease in 2006, celebrities bought apartments, and tourists visited the atrium like it was an attraction. Trump Tower became Donald's headquarters, his home, and his crown jewel. And above it all, 5 bold letters gleamed: TRUMP. From that moment on, his name wasn't just attached to buildings, it was the building. Chapter 4: The Empire Expands. Flush with success, Trump raced into expansion. In Atlantic City, he opened the Trump Plaza in 1984, the Trump Castle in 1985, and the billion-dollar Trump Taj Mahal in 1990. Marketed as the 8th wonder of the world, and touted as one of the largest casinos at the time. In New York, he purchased the Plaza Hotel in 1988 for $407.5 million, calling it the Mona Lisa of hotels. In aviation, he bought Eastern Air Shuttle in 1989 for about $365 million, rebranding it as Trump Shuttle. The planes offered leather seats and upgraded service. But the famous gold-plated buckles? Those were on Trump's private Boeing 757, not the shuttle. He even ventured into sports. In the mid-'80s, Trump bought the New Jersey Generals of the USFL. He pushed for a fall schedule to compete directly with the NFL and joined an antitrust lawsuit. The league won just $1 in damages and soon folded. And then came the Brandon wave: Trump Steaks, Trump Vodka, Trump Magazine, even Trump Water. Most failed, but the message was clear. The name itself was becoming the product. The media couldn't get enough. Trump appeared on Time and Newsweek. He showed off yachts, limousines, and his Palm Beach estate, Mar-a-Lago, purchased in 1985, converted into a private club in 1995. By the mid-'80s, Donald Trump was everywhere. To admirers, he was the bull symbol of Reagan-era capitalism. To critics, reckless and over-leveraged. But the empire was growing, and so were the debts. Chapter 5: The Crash. By 1990, the crack split wide open. The U.S. economy slowed. Atlantic City revenues sank. The plaza bled money. Trump Shuttle lost ground. The Taj Mahal, financed with $675 million in 14% junk bonds, filed for bankruptcy in 1991, just 1 year after opening. Trump Plaza and Trump Castle followed. Altogether, Donald's businesses owed about $3 to $4 billion. Personally, he had guaranteed nearly $800 to $900 million. More than 70 banks held his paper. It should have been the end. But Donald understood something vital. His name, even in bankruptcy, still had value. If the banks destroyed him completely, they would also destroy the brand that made their investments marketable. So he negotiated. He gave up yachts and jets. He surrendered stakes in some casinos. But he kept the image alive, and he never stopped smiling for the cameras. Even in debt deals, he posed as the winner. By the mid-1990s, Donald Trump was bruised, but not broken. Most businessmen would have disappeared. Donald Trump staged a comeback. Chapter 6: Reinvention. Reinvention became Donald's greatest skill. He published books, Surviving at the Top, 1990, The Art of Survival, 1990, The Art of the Comeback, 1997. Each title told the story he wanted. Not collapse, but resilience. He appeared on talk shows, morning TV, even sitcoms like The Fresh Prince and Home Alone 2. To the public, he was no bankrupt mogul. He was still a symbol of wealth. He leaned on licensing. Developers paid millions for the right to stamp his name on their hotels and condos. Less risk for him, but the aura of Trump sold units. By the late 1990s, the debts had calmed. His fortune stabilized. His name shined again. Then came the masterstroke, The Apprentice. Premiering in 2004, it wasn't just a reality show. It was image engineering. Trump sat at the head of the boardroom table, decisive, commanding. And with 2 words, "You're fired," he became a cultural icon once more. The Apprentice ran 15 seasons, with Donald hosting the first 14. Ratings soared. His persona as the ultimate boss was sealed. For millions of viewers, this wasn't the man who lost billions in Atlantic City. This was the billionaire who lived above Fifth Avenue, who made hard choices, who embodied success. By the 2000s, Donald Trump had turned survival into stardom. He had reinvented himself, not as a builder, but as a brand. Chapter 7, The Apprentice Era. The business of a name. The Apprentice gave Trump more than fame. It gave him a platform to expand the brand worldwide. Projects in Chicago, Las Vegas, Toronto, Panama, Istanbul, Manila, Dubai. Many were not owned or built by Trump, but they carried his name. Developers paid millions in fees. Buyers paid premiums for condos branded with 5 letters, TRUMP. It was brilliant in its simplicity. Others took the risk. Trump lent the brand. The brand sold the dream. By 2005, Forbes estimated the Trump brand was worth hundreds of millions. Donald claimed billions. The truth was debated, but the value was undeniable. Hotels, golf clubs, merchandise, even reality TV spin-offs, all bore his identity. Critics argued it was hollow, style over substance. But in Brandon, perception is reality, and Donald had mastered perception. By the late 2000s, Trump had proven a remarkable truth. A building could fail, a casino could collapse, an airline could disappear, but a name once branded into public imagination could outlive them all. Chapter 8, Beyond the Towers. The legacy of a name. By the 2010s, Donald Trump's empire stretched across continents. From Panama to Chicago, from Vancouver to Dubai. His name stood on towers he hadn't built, but branded. Not every venture succeeded. Trump vodka fizzled. Trump steaks vanished. Some hotels later stripped away the Trump logo. But the lesson endured. The physical could fail. The brand remained. Donald Trump had blurred the line between man and brand. Trump the person, well what, so was Trump the product. And the product, the sold worldwide conclusion. Donald Trump's business story is not just about profit and loss. It is about transformation. The boy from Queens became the man who stamped his name across the world. The developer who nearly drowned in billions of debt became the survivor who sold his comeback. The businessman who could have been forgotten became a television icon. And in the end, the product wasn't the towers or the casinos. The product was Trump himself. Banks protected it. Viewers consumed it. Investors paid for it. Because even when the numbers failed, the name survived. Buildings can crumble. Companies can fall. But a powerful name can outlive them all. And Donald Trump understood that better than anyone. Because in the end, his most successful business of all was himself.